Friends, welcome back to the channel. Today is the long-awaited very beginnings of my Neocolor II tutorial series. Yes, this will be a series as I believe there are many different ways to use Neocolor IIs, and I want to give you guys the best opportunity possible to grow your skills. I know that I'm still learning. I'm really enjoying this process. So today we are working from Johanna Basford's Magical Jungle. If you don't have this book, all good. You can jump on Amazon, pick it up, or you can just watch. You don't have to follow along. Today's page I have decided to do is this lovely little pond. Would you call it a mandala? I don't know. But I thought this would be a really great start because we've got a lot of big space to work with, and we can also play around with some little areas as well on these little lily pads. So today I'll be teaching you a couple of methods. No doubt you have seen so many Neocolor II pictures on YouTube and you just don't know where to start. There are many different ways to do this, so I want to show you a few different ways. Now, the most popular way that we see on YouTube and that I have seen on YouTube is the dappled effect, and I've got an example here. So there's this book here. This is one that I completed. This is a color along up on my channel. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just trying to fit everything in on the desk here. Yes, so this is a color along up on my channel from quite a few months back. So I have used Neocolor IIs for the background. Now, as you can see, it is quite saturated. It is quite thick. This was actually the first Neocolor II background I ever completed after many, many weeks of practice, of blood, sweat and tears practicing. I finally felt like I was comfortable to dive in. Now let me zoom you in. I just want to bring your attention to some of the different types and the details in the background here. So you can see that it's almost looking, it's so saturated, it's almost looking like paint. You can see I've got a dappled effect there. So that is 2 layers. And there will be a method that I'm showing you today, which you'll be able to achieve this if you like. So that is a very popular way of coloring that we're seeing on YouTube at the moment. And it is very nice. And I think it's popular for a reason, isn't it? So we can look at that over the series. The next one that I kind of wanted to show you is a bit of a step down. And that is this one here. Now, this page is a tutorial on how to color gold. However, let's draw our attention to the Neocolor background here, which wasn't featured on the video because it was a video about gold. So you can see here, see how it's a little bit more watery? See how there's a little bit more space left for the page color to come through? It's not as saturated, it's not as thick, so there is still 2 layers. However, I've just approached it a little bit differently. So that is another way that it can be done. And again, it's still using that dappled effect. That's that one. And then the third one that I think we will look at, let me show you. This is a page that I've just completed, which is not even, I don't think I've even posted it yet anyway. Is this page here. This was completed with Neocolor IIs for the little dusty background and Artex acrylic markers. Now you can see here how the background's very subtle. It's very light. It's not saturated at all. It's almost like a cloudy kind of powdery effect. That is another option that we can look at for in this series. So I've shown you today 3 different ways that you can do it. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There are many, many different ways, but I just wanted to show you by way of example the different type of looks that you can achieve. Maybe you prefer one over the other. Maybe you want to try all of them. Maybe you just want to watch because you've had your Neocolors sit in a cupboard for ages because you're so scared to even try it that you don't even bring them out. Totally fine. That is what we are here for today, my friends. So let's go back to our page. All right, friends. So I have for the water, okay, so we've got malachite green, turquoise blue, cobalt blue 5%. I think in other places it can also be called cobalt blue light 5%, it just depends. And then for the greens, I have chosen 6. So I've got dark green, emerald green, grass green, bright green, yellow green, and lastly lime green. Now today I'll be using all these greens and blues on the lily pads and the water like we were discussing. And I'm also using today a water brush. Now There are so many different water brushes on the market. I've heard that the Arteza ones are excellent. This is a Pentel one. This is also excellent. It's a very, like a brush tip, so it's not blunt. It's tapered off. And I find that this is perfect for getting in all those little nooks and crannies. Now, if you don't have one of these and you prefer a water brush, that is more than fine. Both are excellent. I just prefer these because I feel like I can control the water a lot more. You will need a cloth, very important. And I'm also using a palette. Now, I've got some colors left over from that picture that I just showed you. And I'm using these colors today, so I've left them on there because I don't want to waste them. So this is just a Caran d'Ache. It's got a lot of grit on there, which is good because it actually grips, it helps the Neocolors actually grip onto it, which is quite good. So today I'll be using this, but if you don't have one, don't worry, because I'm going to show you a few different ways. Now, again, there are many different ways to approach these. Okay, so starting with my 4 colors here. Aren't they just so pretty? So pretty. I love them so much. Okay, so when it comes to applying Neocolor II, I have found that apply the crayon with a light touch. If you press too heavy, you're just gonna smush the pigment into the paper, and it's actually gonna be a lot more difficult to pick up and move around, and you're gonna see the streaks a lot more. So this first method that we're gonna look at is applying the first layer, and we're gonna get our crayon and apply it directly onto the paper. Now, this is just one method. There are different ways you can do this, so you can pick up, you can use the brush first if you want, but for this particular, this water, this is what I'm doing. So I'm gonna start with my darkest color and work my way towards the light. So I'm starting with the darkest around the edges here because I'm trying to mimic some shadows, and I'm just gonna apply it lightly. I'm not pressing too hard, and I'm gonna taper off. So I'm actually gonna color it like a colored pencil and just taper it off. Now, you are better off coloring over this a few times lightly than pressing hard, like I was saying before, because these streaks won't come up. And you're gonna have to apply more water, which is just gonna mean more warping for your page. Okay, now I'm tapering off because this is gonna allow this color to blend in with the next one that we will apply. Get around there. I'm not too worried about, it's gonna get a little bit. I'm not too worried about not getting up to the edges with this, number one, because that is a blunt crayon. But number two, because we're going to spread it with our brush. So just lightly apply it. But notice how I'm not leaving much white space. So I don't want to leave too much white space, because I want to get as much on there as I can without pressing too hard. Yeah, so I do want to play around with as much pigment as possible because it is going to produce a nice color, and we are going to do a couple layers with this today. And you can really do as many layers as you like. When I say as many, 2 to 3 is maybe 3. 2 is the sweet spot if you want something really saturated. 1 if you're just after something really soft. See how it's darker up here? I've got there's more pigment up here. And I'm just tapering off because I'm going to start blending it. Okay, so my next colour is the turquoise blue. So this is the second darkest in the gradient. And I'm just going to blend it. And then taper off as well. Because we don't want any harsh lines. It's really easy to get harsh lines. So we want to mix it and we want to have a smooth gradient, but we still want to see the individual colours. We don't want it looking just like one colour. Some over here. Apologies if you can hear any wind. It's quite windy here today. I'm about to get some rain in a couple of hours as well, so my ideal kind of weather with the rain. Okay. Now, this is not an exhaustive technique either. If you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I don't do it that way, cool. There are many different ways to do this. Many, many, many different ways. Hence why this is going to be a series, which I'm really looking forward to. Because I feel like if I just go, this is how you do it, it's like, well, yeah, but what about X, Y, and Z? Just getting as close to the edge as I can. Again, because we can colour that out. I have just used, you know what I did? I've used my third colour in the gradient. Let's go back in and blend the darker one, shall we? There we go, there we go. Oh my gosh. That's all right. I've gone lightly so I can blend this in. Guys, I used the wrong colour. That's hilarious. That's okay. I'm blending it in. Look at this. Look at this. Because I went lightly, that's okay. If I'd have gone really heavy, that would have been like a bow. But it really wouldn't have mattered because it's the first layer. Don't worry too much. I know that, you know, I'm colouring in a fair bit here, but with your first layer, it's all about applying that foundation. It's not about the fine little details as such. So don't worry if your first layer doesn't have a lot of attention. You can go over it. Okay. Because this is water, this actually might look quite nice. Hence why I'm wondering, even though I made an error and applied the wrong colour in order, I'm thinking that potentially it's not too bad because water is quite flowy and mixing the colours together is nice. Okay, very lightly. Okay, so this is the method of applying the Neocolor to the paper. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little bit of white space because naturally the colour is going to creep forward and creep into one another, and I want to leave a bit of a gap because I want this cobalt blue colour to still be there and still be quite prominent on its own. I don't want it to be mixed with so many other colours that it, as its own entity, doesn't stand out, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to leave a bit of a gap. Don't worry about, so see how I have placed some colours there? But don't worry about these too much because we can go in and apply that after. You can apply it with the brush and I'll show you how to do that. Okay. Happy with that? Again, I'm not too fussed because I can go over it. Spit on there. Okay. Next important thing is to get your cloth handy. Now, yes, this is absolutely feral. I do need to wash it, so I'm going to flip it over. Microfiber cloth, have that on hand. All right, so the trick with these is I need to constantly keep this clean and be wiping it on this cloth here, because if we don't, we're just going to muddy up all the colors. So the first thing that I do before I start work is I just give it a press so that you saw those bubbles just run there, and I just give it a wipe because I want this to be damp. I don't want it to be sopping wet. And you can see I've just run it over my fingers there, and so like how wet it is. So it needs to be a little bit more, because you don't want too much water. You want enough, but not too much. I'm just going to put that up there so you can see it, because I want you to see. Okay, so that is clean. And I'm just going to start dabbing it around. You probably won't see much at the minute. I'm just going to wipe it again. Dab it around. You can see, like, I'm doing a mixture of tapping and dabbing and swirling. It's an organic kind of, yeah, you just kind of pick it up. Just move the brush around. Now, as you get closer to the next colors, wipe off and then start again. And then mix them on here. And you'll know when your brush starts to feel a bit dry, run the water through again, give it a wipe, start again. And if you see some areas where you can still see pigment, like the lines, just keep covering it until it's gone. Keep mixing it with the water until it's no longer there. Even I've applied so lightly, and see how I'm still getting streaks. So it's really important not to go too heavy. Wiping off, because I'm going back to this color. Now we do want to blend them, but not so much that they all just turn into soup, yeah? So we don't want a soupy pond. Wipe off. And it's a mix of circles and dabbing, like I'm just, wipe off, bit there I didn't do. The good thing is about it is that once you've activated it, and if you need to go in and activate again, you can. It's not like, I've heard that the ink tints, once they're activated, that's it. With this, not so much. Just moving it around. Now the reason why I like this brush tip is because it's so brushy, it's quite flexible. So I can manipulate it quite easy. Bit more water. Now, if you need to squeeze a little bit more water out, do it over your cloth, just in case any comes out the end. You don't want to do it over your work. See there? Having a really hard time actually picking that up, but it's not too much of an issue because I'm going to go over it anyway, but it's just something that I don't want to deal with too much. And just going to go lightly to the edges and paint. Bring that color right to the edge. Right to the edge. And while the color's on my brush, paint a bit. Mix a bit, wipe it off, mix. If you see that you've got any harsh lines like that, wipe off and blend. You're going to be constantly going back and forth on your cloth. So like when I wipe, I'm just doing it quick like that. I've just got it off so my hands actually. Now I'm going from, I should have said this at the start, so I'm going from light to dark. Because it's easier to blend and keep the colors even that way. Because if I went from dark to light, I feel, for me, if I go dark to light, I just bring the dark too far forward and I end up with a darker color gradient than I wanted. That's just me. I know that a lot of other people do it that way successfully. I don't. So I know what I can work with. I know what works for me and I roll with it. So it's a matter of finding what works for you. Now, as well, don't go too heavy with the water because we are working in colouring books. They're not specifically designed for wet mediums, even though we can apply wet mediums in them with caution. Don't go hammer and tong because you're going to bleed through. And the good thing about this page is because we're just keeping to the center, the whole page isn't going to warp. So these edges aren't going to warp because they're not wet. If I was doing the whole thing, if I was even doing these white bits with it, there would be some warping. In which case, I know it might be a bit of a controversial thing, but I actually iron my pages. Believe you me, I do. I iron my pages to keep them nice and flat. If you don't want to do that, you can just sit a really, really heavy book on it. If you've got an old dictionary, if you have like a Bible concordance, really heavy book. Maybe you've got some old encyclopedias or something. Really heavy book, sit it on it with the cover closed, of course. Keep it nice and flat. Okay. Just moving the color around. I'm kind of letting the water take it where it wants to. But again, if there's any harsh lines, wipe off, blend it in. Because the lighter color is still wet, you can still blend it in. It'll still even out. See, I've got a nice gradient coming along. So this is a constant game of, my brush is too wet versus, my brush is too dry. I don't own a good set of watercolor brushes that don't have the barrel, that are just like a paintbrush. I don't own a set, hence why I use these. And I find they work quite well. For me, sometimes I can't really control the, what do you call it? Like the water distribution, whereas this, I feel like I can control it really well with the water barrel brushes. Smushing it out. Yeah, so don't be disheartened if you're watching watercolor tutorials or Neocolor II reviews and they're using watercolor paper and they're applying a decent amount of water, and they're doing these beautiful washes, and then you try and do it and you can't achieve that. Don't worry about it. That is because they're more often than not using beautiful watercolored paper that can actually take water quite well. So just bear in mind again that we are using paper that's not necessarily designed for wet mediums, even though yes, it can take it to a degree. If you keep your water light, you won't have any bleed through. So the water's, it's damp, but it's not pooling. Certainly not globs of it. Everything's just damp. And you're better off erring on the side of caution that way. So you're better off having to be like, oh, it's too dry, I need to add more water. You're better off doing that and being like, holy crap, I've got too much. So again, a light hand, light water, multiple layers, I'll just wipe off, blend it. I sound like I'll wax on, wax off. Wipe on, wipe off. And I suppose the good thing about this is because that I am colouring water, there's a fair bit of movement to this, so it's a little bit easier. You can see how we've got that nice blank space. That will darken up with our second layer. Right to the edge. Yeah, I like these brushes because... And if you find that you're picking up pigment and it's dark, just bring it further back into the dark spots. See there, it's a really dark bit. I'm just going to take advantage of that and start colouring back into the darker areas. Oftentimes, where you move your brush next is dependent on what you're actually picking up. Again, it's a very organic thing. It's a very, you can go in with a plan, but just let the water and the brush take you where it wants to go. Now we could. So after I swirl, I'm like dappling it over the swirl just to hot, because I don't want these big like rings everywhere. I'm just trying to make it even as possible. And I like the pigment that I'm picking up. So I'm just going to quickly and then wipe off and blend. It's easier to blend it while it's wet. As soon as it dries, you can't kind of just go in and go blah, blah, blah. You have to like reactivate it again. So I'm working quite quickly so that I can blend everything in, and I'm not trying to be too fussed about the fact that I'm going over some of the lily pads because they will be Neocolor II'd in it as well. You will be Neocolor II'd. Yeah, you just got II'd. Yep. Ugh. Okay. Sorry, I think I'm going out of the shot. There we go. Okay, so I'm hoping this is making sense. I hope that you're not just looking at this going, wait, what? I'm just wiping off because I'm also, while I'm doing this, I'm looking at the spots that are looking a bit globby, and I'm just wiping off, hitting them again with that brush, smoothing them out. This is very much like a tampering. Bring it over here. So I've got darker bits on my brush, so I'm going to bring it down here. Don't freak out about where it's taking you. Just let it take you where it's going to take you. The pigment. Okay. Some up here. Now you might look at this first layer and think, yep, I'm happy with that. Or you might look at it and think, it's not saturated enough, it needs more. Now we can do the second layer. So because this is water, you could arguably go, yep, that's good. But if this was a background and you want it just a little bit more thick, which I do, I know this is water, but I do want it a little bit more, yeah, just a bit more oomph, I think. So what we're going to do, there's two ways to do this for the second layer. Number one, you can pick up your crayon and you can take the pigment directly off there and then paint with it and dapple it in. To me, I have done that before. I do like it. However, as I'm evolving in my Neocolor II-ness, I have come to enjoy the process of applying it to a palette and picking it up from there. And that's what I'm going to do today. So actually, let's just move the book out of the way because it just might be a little bit damp still. Just let it dry just a fraction. Not that it doesn't really matter. Okay. So I'm just going to grab my colours. So I'm going to keep my greens there. I'm pressing quite hard. There's a bit. Turquoise. Because I'm going to pick up from here. And the good thing about this too, is you can blend them. You can blend that with that. You can blend that with that. You can blend, you can do whatever you want. Even like you can notice how I brought some of this color into that one. So you can get really cool colors. That won't be the only time that I do this. I'll probably work my way through them and have to apply more. And that also depends on the area that you're doing. If you have a large area, you'll have to keep applying that. Okay. Now hopefully this is looking a nice blue on your device, because sometimes the camera actually just completely wigs out when it sees this color and it's like, what is that? For some reason it does, it just picks it up and it's like, I don't know how to deal. And then we have our cloth too. I just want to have it all there for you so you can see when I'm actually dipping into things and whatnot. Okay, so now for the second layer. Now I'm going to go from dark to light. Get that water on my brush, get that flowing out. Just enough. I don't want it too wet. And I'm wondering if you might actually see what I mean. Sometimes I do accidentally get it too wet. Okay. I'm going to go in with this one first. Bit on there. And then we're just going to go in and just dapple it and do the same thing. It's a little bit too wet for me. Wipe off. Grab a bit more. Grab a bit more. And you're just painting it. If you want to grab it directly off the crayon, just make sure that you do so over a cloth or away from your colouring book, because you'll end up flicking little bits of, you'll end up with like watery dots everywhere. Okay. Oh. And oh, there's a harsh line, you say. Yes, then we start grabbing this and look, I'm mixing it. There we go. It's a really easy way Okay, wipe, because I want to go back to the darker colour. Now you can keep applying it until you get the saturation that you want. Just going to dab it out a bit more, bring it out, separate that. Now I'm not wiping off, I'm going straight in for this colour because I want to blend them. And then if that's looking too harsh, wipe off, grab the colour on its own and then mix. It's really just, you're just making decisions on how much of that colour can I see, how much of that darkest colour is on my brush, do I want more, do I want less, do I want to mix it with the next colour. It's just, it's like you're asking yourself little questions and picking up. Dab that out. Okay, mix with the next colour. Okay, there's a bit of a line there, mix. I'm just going over it and over it until I get a consistency that I like, a colour that I like. If you're not feeling confident, grab a practice book. Try every method that you can find on YouTube. Watch every video that you can find. Try everything that everyone suggests. See what works for you. And you'll end up developing a technique that is uniquely yours. You'll pick up things. Oh, I'm doing really well at just like going over these lines, aren't I? You'll pick up techniques that are uniquely yours. Now, I've got some blank areas here, so I'm just going to pick up directly from here. And I'm going in. I'm just kind of dotting, going as close to the line as I can, trying not to go over it. It's not always a guarantee. Picking up. If you want more saturated look, pull from the crayon, because you can pick up more pigment if you would like a bolder look. But I quite enjoy having something that's a bit half-half. Okay, let's do this section over here. And again, if you've got some lines going on, don't worry about it. You can blend them because you can reactivate them at any time. Yeah, I'm just going to peter that out there like that. Da-da-dee. Dee-dee-dee. Oop, whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, now for that second, I'm just going to blend it, hence why I'm not wiping off. I'm just going to blend it nicely. So I already have some of the darker pigment on the brush, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Still there, pick it up. And it's going to blend with the pigment that's on the page too. So you're just giving everything the best opportunity to blend. Okay. And over time, you will end up with less of the darker color on your brush. But at any point, if you're feeling like it's getting a bit soupy, just reset, just clear your water, wipe it on your cloth and start again. Okay, I'm going back into this one because I want a bit darker, but I'm happy to use the color that was already there. Think of this as more like paint, I suppose, like watercolor paint, and less like pastel, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Yeah. Oh, getting a bit light there. Bring that out. See how I'm just adjusting as I go. So I'm looking at things and I'm going oopsie daisies, and I'm just fixing it as I go. Yes, there's a technique, but again, it's organic and you have to flow with it, and it's something that you'll develop over time, and you'll develop your own technique that works for you. Now, I'm almost getting to the point where I could apply more, but I'll use as much as I can. Can you hear my dog snoring? Just painting it on. These smaller bits, I'm not too worried about like how dappled or how smooth it looks. Just letting it sit. I'm just more focusing on getting it in the lines. Okay, I'm getting a bit dry, so squish it all out, squish more water through, wipe it back to front. Got enough there, pick it up. I'm a bit watery still. Adjust as you go. There we go. I find it's when you need to apply more water to your brush, it's kind of like you just need to reset for a bit. You just need to like recalibrate everything and get that right water to pigment ratio that you're happy with. And yeah, if you prefer to grab it directly from the crayon, that's fine. Go for your life. You do you, girl. You go, girlfriend. Bit more of the lighter because I've got a few lines going on there. Blend it nicely. I haven't even started with these two yet, hey. Pick that up. The other reason why, yeah, like I was saying before, I really like using the palette is because you can just pick up so many different blends and combinations of things. And you can mix, create new colors. Wipe that because I'm starting to get into some lighter areas now, and I don't want to bring those darker colors too far forward because then you're going to lose your dimension, and I need to work on this area. And I'm not really working in like a linear fashion either, which you may have noticed. I'm just going with bits and going, oh yeah, we'll do that next. Oh yeah, we'll do this, and oh, that's looking a bit dark. Let's adjust. Because otherwise you're just going to end up with like, it's just going to probably look a bit too uniform if you do it that way, potentially. I'll say potentially because you never know. Okay, wiping off. Just going to start with this. The reason why I wiped off is because I had a blend of those two going on, and I don't want that with this just yet. Starting a bit further out. Let's blend it. grab a bit more. Some colours are going to be a bit more watery than others, I've found. And so you just need to adjust how much you pick up depending on that. You're adjusting the amount of times you're actually dipping into this. Got a bit of a line going on, wipe off, blend it out while it's wet. You don't have to. I just find it's easier to, yeah, it's just easier. Enough said. Wipe off this little bit, grab that. Colour in a bit there. I'm a bit more water. I just gave the barrel a tiny little bit of a squeeze. Just a tiny bit. Bring some of this over to the dark, but not too much. Okay. A little bit over here. Again, the good thing about these is you can go all over the shop and come back to things because you can reactivate it, so you're not, even though I'm working relatively quickly, I'm not working against a clock or anything like that. Okay, now I'm going into my lightest color, sorry. And just blending that out. This is quite light, so it's quite watery, which is probably going to be true of the lighter colours. I'll leave a bit of a gap. Now, you can just use a white one if you have a white crayon. I don't, hence why I suppose, hence why I'm leaving gaps in the paper too, because I don't have white. Now, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do in this like in a ring like that, like you could swirl it around if you wanted to. It's completely up to you. I need it just to get all that water out. Okay. Not way too much. Bring the white out just the lightest colour out just a little bit further, and I feel like I'm getting too damp on the page. I can see quite a reflection of water. So I'm just going to leave that for a bit. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let that sit because it might bleed through. And that can happen sometimes. You might get a whoopsie, it might bleed through a little bit. If you think you've applied too much, just leave it. Do not touch it until it's dry again. Because if you just keep on applying, if you keep on trying to mush it around and fix it, you're just going to end up with water, more water from the brush. So that's why, and I'm just going to bring this out a little bit because I don't like things looking too circular. It's like, yes, I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? I'm just going to blend some of that in. I'm liking a colour combination between these top two, which you can't see me applying. Sorry about that. I'm not touching that just yet. Okay, and to me, I can kind of see some bits and bobs there. I can kind of see that there's a bit of a, not that it's too bad. I mean, if you were to look at sun reflecting in the water, sometimes you would have those rings, but to me, I'm gonna do my best. Again, I don't want to add too much. Don't add too much extra water that I don't need to. Don't want to start applying too much pigment that I don't need to. Less is more, especially with your paper, because your paper's so delicate. Johanna Basford paper is pretty good. Kirby's is not too bad. Hannah Carlson's is good. Okay, now I reckon I'm going to have a bit of bleed through there. I can just tell. It happens. Let's have a look. A little bit. I've got some shading going on, but hey, it doesn't matter because this is a water. This is an underwater theme. I don't know if you can see that there. It's a little bit damp coming through, but it hasn't bled through, which is fine. It's just a little bit of a shadow. So I'm happy with that because I know that when I'm coloring this page, because this is like a pond theme, so this is like the continuation of the pond we're coloring, I suppose. I'm going to color over it. So, okay, the only thing that is left for me to do, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to let that part dry. I'm not touching that yet. I'm just going to darken up some of these bits. Just a little bit more. Okay, you can see my brush is looking very, I don't know if it's going to focus on it. See how it's like split? It means I need more water. But a little bit. That's still too much. Okay. Bit here. Bit down there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've filled in the other side of the water. So now all of that's done. One other thing I wanted to go through today is actually coloring some elements with the Neocolor IIs. Now what I'm going to do is some of the lily pads with the green. Right, so I'm going to start by going in with, let's pick some colors, I reckon. So I'm just going to pick 4 colors out of what we were going through at the start. So I'm going with the lime green, the yellow green, the grass green, and the emerald. And all I'm going to do is kind of color it, fade it out. I'm really just treating this the same as I have the water. I'm just doing a light. I'm just going to taper off because I'm only going to do 1 layer. Well, I plan to do 1 layer because it looks kind of cool. And I really enjoy mixing up my mediums. So I'm going to go out the rest of this page with Prismacolor pencils once all the Neocolor work is done. Bit of that, bring it about 1/4 of the way up, taper it off. I'm just going to blend it the same way. Start with that grass green. Bring that in. Now I think it's worth mentioning as well, just because I've coloured water here does not mean that this technique is exclusive to water. So this applies to any background, any element. So you can apply this to, say, if you're wanting to do the background on this type of page or anywhere, you can apply that to any element you like. And I'm actually applying the same technique to this lily pad here. So I know that we can often overthink it and we want to know how to colour Neocolor backgrounds, Neocolor elements, all of that. There are so many things that we're like, oh, we need to apply Neocolor II in a different way. It's actually loosely all the same. Even though there are many different ways to do things, it's all a variation on a theme and just all with slight little differences. So I think it's very easy for us to overcomplicate things and we think, oh, I have to learn 50 Neocolor techniques. You don't. Just learn a couple, and you'll find that you can apply them to lots of different things. Now that is very different, so I'm just going to keep an eye on that because I've see how this is quite. See, there's a massive difference between those two colours, so I'm going to blend that a bit better, I think. I'm going to go back in with that grass, soften that up a bit. Just loosely, you can see like it's still looking a bit scraggly, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, and that very last lime green on the edge there. A bit more of the second darkest. See, I'm just adjusting as I go. Yeah, adjusting as we go. It's another good reason why it's good to go lightly is because you can just keep adding light layers. Now I would like to just saturate that middle up just a little bit. A bit more of that grass in. Again, it's all just going to be, it will all be blended, but all right. Cloth, brush, because we've been using blue, I'm going to wipe it completely clean. Now, I'm going to go dark to light because we're working with such a, light to dark, because we're working with such a small area. It's really important to clean your brush regularly because there is more of a chance to muddy everything up. So I'm changing color, wipe, changing color now, wipe, changing color, wipe. Over the top. Just dampening off the colour change. Wipe. So changing colour. This is going to mean that you're going to blend your colours nicely, but you're also still going to, every individual colour will still be there as its own entity, so it's not going to be lost. Blend that up a bit. So I'm just using the same. I know that with there, you know, the first layer we went light to dark and then we flipped it around. But it's all pretty much the same theory you're applying, the same techniques. So you're wiping your brush in between colours, and your goal is to have an even spread of the water across the colours, no harsh lines. But you still want to let the water do the work at the same time. It's just... I know I started from the middle there. Sometimes I was just trying to blend that. So sometimes there are exceptions to the rule, so it's not a always do this. If you don't do that, then you are bad. It's not that at all. I'll bring this up here because we're just going around and creating some shadows around there. Bring that in, wipe. Right, all of that is coloured. Let that one dry because I want to show you some cool stuff that we could do with a paint pen over the top. And I'm just got a tooly out one here. What we're going to do is we're going to outline that, but I will just let it dry a little bit. So let's do another one. And this time I'm going to go with my 4 darkest colours that I've had. So I'm going the dark green. Let's get this in shot, hey? Dark green, back to the emerald green, the grass green and the bright green. Let's go ahead and do the one below it. Now you could invert the gradient. You could go dark from the edges here and work your way in, if you wanted to do that. Oh, there is a split there in the lily pad. I will leave that so I can go back in and apply my blues. And I tend to keep, so I don't wash the palette until the page is absolutely done, just in case there's any bits that I've missed. Okay, emerald green. grass green. This one's really pretty. Mix it a little bit down there. And then bright green at the very end. I'm just going to go over these little indents because they'll be paint pen anyway. It's easier just to go over it than it is to try and get around them, because you're just probably going to have a bit of a mess if you just try and, you know, do triangles and stuff. It just might be a bit, it's just not worth the little fine tuning. Drag that down a little bit. Right. Brush. I don't get it. Okay. Outside, work your way down, wipe. Next section, wipe, blend, wipe, bring it up, wipe, blend any harsh lines that you see, wipe. You know the drill. So again, all I'm doing, every time I'm changing colour, I'm just wiping my brush so that I'm not dragging too much of the pigment down. Of course, I do want some blend, which we're all about, but I don't want so much that I just completely mush it. Unless you're actually going for colours that you're mixing them for a purpose and they all need to be evenly blended, then yes. Let's just get this section done. Wipe. Bring that up. Wipe. I've just wiped my brush into some acrylic paint. Nice. Wipe. Dab this across a little bit. Nice. Nice. Should just have my cloth like to the left, to the left. Bring that up to meet. Look at that. That one I'm quite happy with. This one, I feel like I could go in with a second layer just to deepen up some of the colours a bit more, because we were on the lighter side. So that's what I'll do. And here's something I prepared earlier, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I'll pop this over here. Let's just Bob Ross this scenario. Okay. Okay, so I know that that's dark green and that's emerald. So I'm using, let's get a bit of that. That's too wet. A bit more. Yeah. Dee dee dee. Don't worry too much about that harsh line, we'll remove it in a minute. Bit of this. A bit of this one, it's already there. I'm being quite fluid with this. I'm just going up the gradient. The sole purpose is to just saturate these colours a bit. I'm not too fussed about getting the colour placement perfect. I'm just wanting to bring out those colours a bit, and there we go. That's a bit better, isn't it? Okay, and now what we can do, how's that? It's pretty dry. They dry pretty quickly. My Tooly Art paint pen, I will just make sure that that is flowing nicely before I apply it to my colouring page. Okay. Nice and juicy, these ones. So you can get this nice watercolor look. And I'm not going to be applying it to every single lily pad. Because I do want to have a nice blend of the watercolor and Prismacolor pencils. You will just go over and do the edge. This bit is not straight. Straighten that up. You don't have to use white if you don't want to. I just like the vibrancy. Yeah, I'd usually do the paint work at the end, but just by way of demonstration. Cover up those black lines. It just gives a very earthy, organic look to the page, which can be fun. So you could apply, oh, there's a bit down there. So you could apply this to as many lily pads as you want. I'm probably just going to do that other big one. But here we have the completed Neocolor elements of this colouring page. So I also wanted to show you just how I have progressed with Neocolor II. I wanted to share my practice pages with you so that you can see, I suppose, my progression, and hopefully to provide a little bit of assurance and relatability that just because you're starting out with Neocolor IIs and you feel like yours might not look amazing doesn't mean that they can't improve. So let me just, this is a practice book of mine. This is later practices, so that's the technique that I've just kind of showed you. Not necessarily that, but this. This was probably when I just started to feel like I was getting somewhere with it. I know there's still a lot of harsh lines here and I'm really struggling with the blending, and it's laid down quite thick, but this was as I was like, oh, I don't know. And then, whoops. This was as I was playing with different washes. I was trying to do big washes, big colors, experiment with very smooth blends. You can see here, like I've got a lot of lines left over. What else have we got? This was again practicing with some of those, what we've just done. And I have applied the colors quite thickly, and then I've gone over it with a gel pen. So I think that'll look quite cool with the whole tree. So that was probably like one of my most latest things where I was quite happy with it. Okay, this page here is just full practice page. So Neocolor II, Neocolor II, Neocolor II. That was when I was experimenting with blending purple and I think there was an orange or something, or like desert rose even, just to make another pink. Neocolor II there. The rest is Distress ink. Neocolor II there. So you can see, and I've been playing around with some washes here, that's Distress ink. I've just been mixing stuff. So practicing with some washes. That too. Practicing with many different things. Techniques, not really happy with it. Still finding my feet with it. This was done before that castle one. So this is when I was still struggling to blend. So I'm still getting very harsh lines, and I've been applying the paint quite thickly. Not the paint. I've been applying the Neocolors quite thickly, and it's very chalky, and the paper is very stiff as a result, and trying to blend in there, not really liking the result. More here. So you can see I've not only practiced once or twice, I've practiced over quite a few occasions, and I still am practicing. So that's probably like at the wrong position of the screw. It looks like he's just like, oh dear. Same with the fox. This is me trying a galaxy effect. I feel like I still struggle with that, so I don't know if I'm kind of ready to teach that at the minute. What else have we got? More here. So I hope that kind of shows you there is a progression with this. It can take some time. I'm sure that I will look back in a year's time and it'll be different yet again, but I just want to give you some encouragement that it's okay if you're not happy with where it is. Keep practicing, keep watching as many different tutorials as you can. Keep finding the thing and the techniques that work for you, because it will click for you. I'm really looking forward to filming more videos in this series. There will be more coming. I have some ideas on how we could replicate this background in this page or this double page spread, I should say. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I know that I've had a few requests for some Neocolors and Johanna colors on. They will be coming as well. So I'm looking forward to doing those over the next few months. Maybe it'll spread across the year. We'll see how we go. But thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.